So what we're going to do is we're going to start today with converting fractions, decimals, and percents, converting among those three types of numbers. And this should be a review for you. So you're going to take notes on this, and you'll have these notes in your folder, and you will have access to these notes anytime you need them. So anytime throughout the rest of the triad, if you need to know how to convert from a fraction to a percent, you can pull these notes out, and it'll help you if you forget how to do it. The first one that we're going to do is a decimal into a fraction. So a decimal is a number like the ones that we were just looking at in that opener there, where we have a decimal point in there somewhere. So this is not an example, so don't write this down. But let's say we have a number like 0.5, and we want to convert that to a fraction. So we have this decimal, we want to convert it to a fraction. What are we going to do? But what we need to do here is we need to figure out what place value this has. Stephen says this is in the 10th place. So since the 5 is in the 10th place, then we're going to write it as a fraction, 5 over 10. This is why we need to know the place values. Because when we're converting a decimal into a fraction, we need to know what this place value is. This 5 is in the 10th place, it's 5 over 10. So the first thing we have to do is we need to figure out what place value this is. Once we figure out the place value, then we're going to write it as a fraction using that place value. And then what else are we going to have to do with this? We're going to have to reduce it in the end. All right, so the three steps here that we're going to take are determining the place value of the last digit. Then we're going to write a fraction using the decimal without the decimal point. That's going to be in the numerator, and then the place value goes in the denominator, and then we're going to reduce. Go ahead and write that down, and then we'll do a couple examples. So the last step is always going to be reduced when we're converting to a fraction. Another thing I want you to keep in mind as we go into this, when we convert to a fraction, we actually would rather have improper fractions than to have mixed numbers. A number like 3 over 2 compared to a number like 1 1/2. This is an improper fraction, this is a mixed number, right? The 3/2 is actually easier to work with. It's easier to add improper fractions. It's easier to multiply. It's easier to divide improper fractions. So when we write our answer as a fraction, we want to write it as an improper fraction and not a mixed number. Okay, we're going to keep it as an improper fraction, but it does need to be reduced. So on the example sheet that we gave you, this is the other sheet. The first example is 0.24. We want to convert this to a fraction. So go ahead and write the problem down, and we'll go through the steps, and I want to make sure that you understand what each of these steps means. So what does the first step say? So the first step says determine the place value of the last digit. There's 3 digits here in this number. Which one's the last digit?
4.
The 4. So what is the place value of the 4 in this problem?
100.
That is in the hundredths place. Remember, hundredths means 1 over 100, right? Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to write it as a fraction. So what does step 2 say? Stephen, go ahead and read it.
Write a fraction using the decimal as the numerator and the place value as the denominator.
Okay, good. So write a fraction using the decimal as the numerator and the place value as the denominator. With one little exception in there. When we put the decimal in the numerator, what are we going to get rid of?
0.
And the decimal point. So when we write the numerator, we get rid of this decimal point. So instead of putting 0.24 up here, we're going to put 24. And in the bottom, what are we going to get? 100. So we get 24 over 100.
So whenever, whatever.
Once we get that fraction, what do we need to do? Reduce. What number goes into 24 that also goes into 100? 2. They're both even, so 2 goes into it. What's 24 divided by 2? 12. And what's 100 divided by 2? 50. Okay. And then, are we done? No, we can reduce again, right? They're both even. So what can we divide by? Divide by 2 again. 12 divided by 2 is? 50 divided by 2 is? Okay, can I reduce that? No. So that is going to be my final answer. Second example, we want to convert 1.5 to a fraction. again, the first step, we want to figure out what place value this last digit is. So what place value is that 5 in? Not the tens. They're the tenths. Sounded like you said tens. Got to be careful. Tens and tenths are different. So we've got the tenths place. So when we rewrite the fraction, what's going to go on the bottom? The 10. What goes on top? Just the 5?
No, the 1.5.
It's going to be 15. We're going to write this number, but we're going to write it without the decimal. So we take the decimal point out, and we get 15. So we get 15 over 10. And then what do we need to do with that? Reduce it. What number goes into both of those? 5. What's 15 divided by 5? What's 10 divided by 5? And again, we'll leave that as an improper fraction because if we're going to use that to figure something else out, to make some other calculation, it's going to be easier to work with the improper fraction. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn a fraction into a decimal. We're going to go the other way. Sometimes we'll just be able to go in the reverse order. So sometimes you can just take what you did to go from a decimal to a fraction and just flip it. But we can't really do that here. So there's actually an easier way to turn a fraction into a decimal. Let's say that we got that we have a number like 3 over 4, and I want to change that to a decimal. All I have to know is what that fraction actually means. What does a fraction mean? A fraction just means to divide. So if I have a fraction like 3/4, if I want to turn that into a decimal, what do? Divide what? Should I do 3 divided by 4, 4 divided by 3, 3 divided by 100? No. Doesn't have anything to do with 100. Top number divided by bottom number. 3 divided by 4. So all we have to do, there's only one step here. It's really easy. To turn a fraction into a decimal, we divide the numerator by the denominator. Take the top number divided by the bottom number, and you're done. Now, we're not going to make you do this by hand. If you have something like 3/4, we're not going to make you write out the long division and put the decimal and add the zeros and all that stuff. You can use a calculator for this. So all you have to do is type into the calculator 3 divided by 4, and that's going to give you your answer. So the first example, we want to convert 4/5 to a decimal. So to figure out what 4/5 is as a decimal, what am I going to do? What do I type into the calculator? I'm going to type in 4 divided by 5. There's not really any work to show. You don't have to write this down, but this is what you're going to type in. 4 divided by 5, and it's going to give you a decimal. What does it give you?
0.8.
0.8. Now, one thing I want to mention here, this 0 here is not absolutely necessary, although we want you to put it on there. That 0 does a couple of things. First of all, you always want to have something in the ones place. So if there's nothing there, it's hard to see that the decimal is going to be there also. If you just write 0.8, that decimal point might get lost in the box for your answer. It might get lost with the equal sign, or you just might not notice it. So having something in the ones place helps to notice that there's a decimal point in there also. All right, so if there's nothing there, write it like your calculator gives it to you. The calculator will put 0 in there for you. Just write 0.8.
Hey guys, just a reminder, now that graphing's over, make sure you're boxing your answers again.
All right, second fraction, 21 over 25. Again, all you have to do is type this into your calculator. What are you going to type in? 21 divided by 25. And when you do that, what are you going to get?
0.84.
And put a box around your answer. We want to convert a decimal into a percent. So let's say we have a number like 0.75. And we want to convert this to a percent. What do I do? So to convert a decimal like 0.75 to a percent, we're going to multiply by 100, which is the same thing as moving the decimal 2 places to the right. Okay, so when we multiply by 100, we make the number bigger. to make the number bigger, we have to move the decimal to the right. So there's two things I want you to write down for this. You're going to multiply by 100, but an easier way to do that without having to use a calculator is to move the decimal 2 places to the right. Now there's one other important thing about this. Since we're going to get a percent as our answer, we want to make sure that we write it as a percent. So what do I need to include? The percent sign. Okay, so don't forget the percent symbol. If you leave the percent symbol off, it means something completely different. So 0.75 is the same thing as 75%, but if I leave the percent sign off, what I'm saying is 75 cents is the same thing as $75. And we know that's not true, right? So I need that percent sign there to show that it's a percent. We want to convert 0.24 to a percent. This should be really easy if we know what we're doing. So we're going to multiply by 100, right? But multiplying by 100 is the same thing as doing what, Jason?
Moving the decimal 2 places to the right.
Moving the decimal 2 places to the right. So we're going to move it once, we're going to move it twice, and so the decimal is going to end up here after the 4.
Yeah.
So 0.24, if I write everything exactly the same, except I'm going to put the decimal in a different place now, I get this. Am I done?
No,
No, there's 3 things I don't like about this answer.
the decimal.
Okay, the decimal is not necessary anymore. Why not, Jason?
Because it's on the left, or it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's on the right side.
Yeah, if the decimal is all the way at the end of the number, you don't need it there. So we can get rid of that. What else?
0.
This 0 here is not necessary anymore either, right? It's not holding a place value. It's just out in front of everything. So what can we do with that 0?
Drop it.
Just get rid of it. Okay, what else?
And the percent sign.
Yeah, this right now our equation says that 24 cents is equal to $24, and that's not true. So we need the percent sign there to show that this is also a percent. So our answer here is going to be 24% after we move the decimal 2 places to the right. Okay, second example, we want to change 1.5 to a percent. Again, we're just going to multiply by 100, which is the same thing as moving the decimal 2 places to the right. So I'm going to take my decimal point here, and I'm going to move it to the right 2 times. I have a little bit of a problem here. What's my problem, Stephen? Yeah, there's a blank space here. So I don't have anything to hold this place here in front of my decimal. If I don't put anything there, here's what it's going to look like. It's going to be a 1.5, and then a blank, and then a decimal point. Well, that's going to get confusing, right? So, Stephen, what do I need to put in there?
150. 0.
Yeah, I'm going to put a 0 to hold that spot. So I can put a 0 here. And then, since the decimal is at the end of the number again, I don't need it there. So I can get rid of that decimal point. And then am I done?
Percent.
And then we need our percent symbol. What does percent mean? It means out of 100. So percent means out of 100. Okay, so the reason we multiply by 100 to change a decimal to a percent is because we're taking this out of 100. All right, so this 150% means 150 out of 100. The next thing we want to do is turn a percent into a decimal. This is going to be really easy because it's just the opposite of turning a decimal into a percent. What Takia is suggesting is, since it's the opposite of turning a decimal into a percent, instead of multiplying by 100, we're going to divide by 100, which is the same thing as moving the decimal 2 places to the left. Instead of going to the right, we're going to go to the left. So to turn a percent into a decimal, we're going to divide by 100. And when we divide by 100, that's the same thing as moving the decimal 2 places to the left. Now, if we start with a percent, we're going to have the percent symbol on the number. Do we need to keep that percent symbol on there? Are we going to keep the percent symbol on there after we change it to a decimal? No. We can drop the percent sign also. We have 40%, and we want to convert this to a decimal. Again, percent means out of 100, so this means 40 out of 100. So to change it to a decimal, we're going to divide this by 100. And what's an easy way to do 40 divided by 100?
Move left.
Move the decimal 2 places to the left. I have a problem, though. I don't know where the decimal is.
At the end.
Can I just put it anywhere I want? Can I put it like here or here or here?
Listen to me real quick. It's at the end.
Yes. It's going to be at the end. It's going to be after the 0 there. So if there is no decimal point, you put it all the way to the right of the number. All right, so the decimal point is right here to start with. When we divide by 100, we're going to move it 2 places to the left. So what are we going to get? So let me do this. I'm going to just write it the way it is right now. We get 0.40. There's 2 things that I want to change about this. What's one thing that we could change about our answer that makes it a little bit simpler or more proper? What's that? Yeah, this 0 doesn't have to be there. Again, it's not holding a place value for us anymore. Okay, it's just at the end of the number after the decimal. We don't need it there. So I'm going to get rid of that. What else? Yeah, we want a 0 in front of the decimal to hold that ones place. So we're going to put a 0 in there. So our answer is going to be 0.4. All right, how about 3.7%? We want to change 3.7% to a decimal. Again, percent means out of 100. So we're going to divide by 100, which is the same thing as divide by 100 is the same thing as move the decimal to 2 places to the left. Again, we have a problem here. I have this empty space. So if I write it exactly like it is, I'm going to get a decimal point, and then a space, and then a 3 and a 7. So yes, we can't just have an empty space there between the decimal and the 3, because it looks like this 3 is in the 10th place then. But we know that it shouldn't be in the 10th place. It should actually be in the 100th place, right? So to put it in the 100th place, we need to put that placeholder in there for the 0. And then what else do we need? We need that 0 out in front of the decimal to hold the ones place. We always want something in the ones place. The next thing we want to do is convert a percent into a fraction. Now, if you know what percent means, turning a percent into a fraction is really easy. What does percent mean again? It means out of 100. So if we have a number like 50%, if I get a 50% on a test, if there were 100 questions on that test, how many did I get right? How many? 50, right? So 50% means 50 out of 100. So how would I write that as a fraction? How would I write 50% as a fraction to show that it's 50 out of 100? I would write it as 50 over 100. So all we have to do to write a percent as a fraction is to write a fraction with the percent in the numerator and 100 in the denominator. We put the 100 in the denominator because it's out of 100. Just like always when we get a fraction as an answer, though, what else do we have to do with it? We need to simplify. We're going to reduce our fraction. So this is a 2-step problem because we might have to simplify in the end. Now, the nice thing about simplifying with 100 in the denominator is it's really easy. There's only a few numbers that go into 100. All right, so 35%. We want to write this as a fraction. Remember, percent means what? Out of 100. So 35% means 35 out of 100. So how do we write 35 out of 100 as a fraction? 35 over 100, and I'm done, right? Got to reduce. Okay, the only prime numbers that go into 100 are 2 and 5. So if you can't reduce by 2 and you can't reduce by 5, you don't have to reduce at all. Can I reduce by either one of those numbers here? Yes, 5 goes into both of them. So what is 35 divided by 5? What is 100 divided by 5? 20. Okay, now I've reduced once. I need to make sure I can't reduce again. Again, I'm only going to be able to reduce by 2 or 5. If I can't reduce by one of those, I don't have to do anything. Can I reduce by 2?
No.
Can I reduce by 5? No. Neither one of those goes into 7, so I'm done. So 35% is the same thing as 7 over 20. Second example, we want to change 72% into a fraction. 72% means 72 out of 100. So it's 72 over 100. And can I reduce by 5? Can I reduce by 2? Yes. They're both even, so I can reduce by 2. What is 72 divided by 2?
36.
What is 100 divided by 2?
50.
Okay, am I done? No, I can reduce by 2 again, can't I? So reduce by 2, and 36 divided by 2 is 18. 50 divided by 2 is 'Can I reduce again? No. Get 18 over 25. So the last type of problem we're going to do is a fraction into a percent. Now, it's not easy to just reverse the order for this one. So we change the percent into a fraction by just writing the percent over 100. Well, if we try to reverse that, we have to have 100 in the denominator before we can change it into a percent. So that's not necessarily going to be the easiest thing to do. What would be easier here is if we knew how to change this fraction into a decimal. Do we know how to change a fraction into a decimal? Look at your paper. Do we know how to change a fraction into a decimal?
Yes.
How do you do it?
Divide the numerator.
Divide the numerator by the denominator, right? So if we can change the fraction into a decimal and then the decimal into a percent, do we know how to change a decimal into a percent?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do?
Multiply.
Multiply by
100.
100. So we can change a fraction to a decimal, we can change a decimal to a percent, and it's really two simple steps. We divide the numerator by the denominator, then we multiply by 100. Okay, so we're going to do those two things separately. We turn the fraction into a decimal first by dividing, then we turn the decimal into a percent by multiplying by 100. And don't forget, since it's a percent, we need to be sure that we include Since it's a percent, we need to be sure we include the percent sign. We would like to convert 3/4 into a percent. So let's say you get 3 questions right out of 4 on a quiz. You want to know what percent you got on it. You may know what it is already, but let's go ahead and go through the math. There's 2 steps that we're going to do. We're going to change it from a fraction to a decimal first. So how do I change this from a fraction to a decimal?
Divide 3 times. Divide
3 divided by 4. So we do 3 divided by 4 and we get what? 0.75. Now this is the decimal. We don't want the decimal, we want the percent. So how do I change that to a percent?
You move the decimal over.
Yeah,
Right?
we're going to multiply by 100, right? And multiplying by 100 is the same thing as moving the decimal 2 places to the right. So we move the decimal 2 places to the right and we get 0.75 point. It's kind of a silly answer, right?
Drop the 0.
Okay. Get rid of the decimal point, get rid of the 0, and
The percent sign.
put the percent sign on there. And we get 75%. It's easy enough, right? All right, one more. So 7/8, we want to convert that to a decimal first. What are we going to type into our calculator to do that?
7 divided by
And what do you get?
0.87.
And then we need to change that to a percent. How do we change that to a percent?
Multiply 100.
Multiply by 100, so we move the decimal 2 places to the right. And what do we get?
7.5.
So 87.5, that's our answer?
Where you put percent?
Percent. Don't forget the percent.